In this video, we're going to review the structure in the designer of this beautiful website that has been created by Tai Hugay, which you can also check out. It's a template which is available on Webflow. And overall, I think the structure is very clean. The design is beautiful. And overall, just a minimal approach which goes a long way. You can see how just a few touches, such as this parallax effect, can really add the depth to the website without making it like a boring and static website, without the need of adding so many animations and elements. So this is a perfect example of what I would refer to as a classy website. And as we jump into a designer, we can have a look at the structure as the very first thing. So let's open the navigator. And again, very common pattern in most of the Webflow builds these days is having a page wrapper, which is incredibly useful in order to copy and paste entire pages without having to select the individual components individually. And over here at the very top, we have nav fixed. Then we have the main wrapper, which is going to contain pretty much all of the website. And there is also a preloader which is going to showcase the loader up at the very start when the page is loading up. So let's go into the nitty-gritty of things. And as you can see, first of all, we have a navbar. Now, not surprisingly, this is going to be a component, which is always great practice for elements such as navbars. And you can see that over here, we essentially have the nav line, which is basic line. Then we have under padding horizontal, padding container larger, which contains everything within here. And then the actual nav container, which funnily enough is structured as a grid. So within a grid container, and this is very strategic actually. So you can see how we can have the nav bar over here, nav menu, and nav button. Everything is organized in a very easy and efficient way. If you click on the grid, you can see that it's quite basic, quite straightforward. 3 columns, and that is going to basically do the job. Now, if we go back and we examine the main wrapper, you can see how, compared to the other website that we recently reviewed, the footer is contained within the main wrapper, which is totally fine. That works really well. And also, what he did is he has different sections, although these aren't really the Webflow basic and native section elements, since if we actually add add a section, let's say right here, just to kind of like illustrate what a section usually is, you can see that the icon is different. So he's calling these sections, but what they are divs, which by the way, the section element in its really entire form, it's actually a div. So it's exactly the same thing, but I just wanted to mention this because as you can see, there's different ways that you can organize your content within Webflow, and you can create all sorts of different div structures. So again, it really depends on what you prefer. Usually these days, what I like to do is to follow the FinSuite system when it comes to organizing elements in my Webflow builds. But again, it really comes down to the personal preference. And overall, if you examine this, we have the main wrapper, the actual section of the home here in this case, and then we have the another div, padding horizontal, container large, and then the home hero intro, which is going to contain the actual heading. So quite common, and overall looking quite quite good in its structure. It's taking into account pretty much anything that we want to do so. And I won't really go into the details of each and every div, since that is probably going to be a bit too nuanced. But I want to show you how he organized the elements. Over here, for example, we have grid. So again, you could use a Flexbox, but grids are going to be so much more efficient of a tool in this case. And again, especially if you're starting to think in terms of responsiveness, like you can see how easy it is to organize the grid. And with Flexbox, yes, you could definitely achieve the same results, but sometimes it's just going to be a bit more tricky. Grids are going to be more flexible and structured in a way where it's going to be easier for you to actually go ahead and really structure something that works at scale. Over here, we're noticing that he is using a component for these elements. So again, uh, pretty straightforward should be. So we have padding horizontal, container large over here, and if we dive down into the item, you can see how again he's using grids even over here in order to organize these elements um, within each other. So there's actually another grid which contains the main strategy text. And yeah, grids and grids, which is something that you can easily do in order to structure your builds. And again, over here we have simply a flex box containing all of these components, which its direction is set to vertical. So quite easy, quite straightforward overall. And if we have a look at these two elements, well, first one, this one is going to be an image, so not too much going on. And over here, once again, we find the slider element, which I remind you that the slider element, the moment that you add it in a Webflow, is going to look um, like this. But you can do so much in terms of the location of the elements. So in this case, this is still a slider, and you can see how the arrows were basically brought up. So you are not fixed to the basic structure that the slider or even other elements and components in Webflow have, but you can literally redesign them as you wish, like he did in this instance. And again, if we have a look at this, it's looking pretty solid, basic slider. We have all of the elements, all of the links, and yeah, overall looking good. Now, one thing that I really enjoyed about this build is this parallax element that he has. So one thing that we want to have a look at is basically how he structured this element, and you can see that we have the background wrapper, which does have an interaction point. So if we actually go ahead in the interaction and we check the interactions panel, we have the element trigger, which is while scrolling in view image parallax. So that is exactly the one that we want to look at. And if we have a look, you can see how basically this is going to show the parallax based on where the user is in the viewport height. So it's actually very simple to achieve. We have the move, which is going to be at minus 15 in the y-axis. And once you scroll all the way down, it's going to be 15. And we have also a scale tool, which is actually keeping the scale exactly the same. So that's probably in order to be 100% sure that the image is going to fit perfectly or something around these lines. It really depends on what went on in the background as he was creating this build. So overall, great, great build. We have some other components which I would assume using the grids once again. I'm also a big fan of grids, so you can see how this recurring patterns are happening, And yeah, overall, I think this is a really great website. He has also other templates that I highly recommend you to check out. And yeah, I'll leave it at your discretion now to have a look at the original build and start examining and learning about all of these nuanced elements and how the pros structure their Webflow builds.